Good afternoon, everybody. I welcome you all to today's Mondays at Murdoch session with Murdoch University Dubai. Today is yet another Monday, and even more exciting as we bring to you a lovely topic on mental health and well-being. It's on powerful tools to fight depression. My name is Nikita, and I work as a student recruitment officer at Murdoch University Dubai. And I'd like to introduce you. I'm really privileged and I'm proud to have Dr. Maja Zivkovic, our faculty head of psychology program. Hi, Dr. Maja. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Maja is having an extensive background. She started off her career as a student counselor, and she joined Murdoch University Dubai at the beginning of 2019. So it's been a year now that she's with us, and we are privileged to have her again with us. And today, learn more about the topic itself. And she has been oriented with all of our students, encouraging them in their involvement, not just in academics, but also in developing their personal well-being as well as development and their critical thinking skills. She's also worked at the University Hospital in Zagreb, Croatia. So, thank you again for joining us today. She's got years of experience, starting from being an assistant professor to having extensive research done. She's also published a university textbook, 5 chapters in scientific books, and 24 research articles in various scientific journals. She then moved on to do her Master's of Arts program in psychology from University of Zagreb itself, proceeded to do her Master's of Science in Health Psychology at King's College London, UK, and then also ended up with the highest post-education PhD at the Medical School, University of Zagreb. Before we move on to this session, I would just like to give you a few tips. Please use the Q&A icon box to submit your questions and queries. You can also feel free to share your experience because the topic on depression, mental health is very sensitive to most of us, and in some societies itself, it's very, very subjective as a sensitive topic, and people generally aren't very vocal. So please use this opportunity. Consider this as a stepping stone. Dr. Maja is here with her years of experience to guide you through, and not just you, I think even I would learn a lot. So I hope to have an interactive session with all of you and Dr. Maja to help us guide us through. Over to you, Dr. Maja. Nice to meet you again. And I hope that you will address our questions at the end of the session.
Yes. Hi, Nikita, and hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today for Mondays at Murdoch. As you heard, today's topic is about mental health and well-being. So I think it's something that it's very important in all of our lives, and especially today, as this year 2020 has been so strange and very unexpected, with a huge impact on us and on our well-being and mental health. So I think these topics, even though they're always important, they're even more important this year and definitely worth talking about. So thank you, Nikita, for the lovely introduction. As she said, my name is Maja and I am a student counselor. I'm a psychologist and I work as a student counselor at Murdoch University Dubai. I also teach psychology here at Murdoch. So I do get to know a lot of our students from different perspectives as their lecturer, but also as their counselors. And we work a lot on different kinds of problems. So if there is anything you would like to ask or discuss, please do so. This is what this session is all about. It's about you and your well-being. Of course, you can ask the questions as we go along or at the end of the session, whatever you're interested in, whatever you want to ask, please feel free to do so. So we will start with our topic for today, and that's powerful tools to fight depression. So, sorry, let me just move on. I presume most of you are high school students or maybe close to your university. And then you would still be considered a teenager, so somewhere in your teenage years. And these years can be specifically tough for young people because, you know, it's a period when you change a lot and you discover new things about yourself, about life, about people, around you, but also, you know, it's a period when you change physically. It's a period when your brain changes a lot, the way you process emotions, the way you understand what's going on around you. And, you know, adults will always say, teenagers are very moody, it's hard to deal with them. The truth is that research shows teenagers are not really that moody, not much more than the rest of us. However, what does happen is that you change a lot from being a child, where you're more carefree, not because you became moody all of a sudden. It's more because now you see the world through different eyes, you understand things that are going on a bit better, you're also aware of the problems around you, you're aware maybe of the problems that your parents or your family are going through, which as a child you've been shielded from. So, you know, these are definitely different years. And also, as I said before, your brain starts to change. So certain parts of our brain that were not so developed in the childhood, they do become important now. Sorry, I can see it's not full screen, my presentation. Or is it? Nikita, can you see my presentation?
It's fine at the moment, Dr. Maya, but you can make it, if you would like, you could enhance it, go full screen, but this should do as well, no worries.
No, it's okay if you just let me know how, because I do see it as full screen. So if you can just tell me.
Yes, now it's full screen, yes.
It is? Okay, good. Thank you, thanks. I see a raised hand. Should we address the question now? Yeah?
I think there's somebody asking us when the session will end. That would be in an hour or so. But then
Yeah.
please feel free again to all of you who are joining us today to share your questions, submit them through the Q&A icon, and Dr. Maya will help us at the end of the session.
Okay, thank you. So yes, as we were saying, the years that you are in, so adolescent years, or as we call them, teenage years, they can be challenging. And as I said, not because you are specifically moody just because you're a teenager, but because you are becoming more aware of the world and understanding things better and better. And also some parts of your brain that work to kind of combine your problem-solving skills and your thinking together with your emotions, they're just developing during the teenage years. So that's why sometimes teenagers seem more moody than the rest of us. But as research showed, that's not really the truth. You just start understanding things better and start dealing with all these new and bigger emotions and also bigger life problems as well, because, you know, I guess you are all aware of it pretty well. The requirements from you at this age become a little bit more different, more serious. It's about, you know, going towards the end of your high school, making some decisions about your future life. You feel the pressure there. You feel probably some expectations from your family, from the people around you, which can also be quite hard, especially if those expectations are not the same as your interests and so on. So this is definitely for many young people a challenging time in their life. So teenagers can really be tough, and because of all the things that do go around, that do happen around us. And it's perfectly normal to feel sometimes sad or irritable, to feel moody, to feel up and down. These are all the normal changes that we all go through. However, that's not what depression is. So if these feelings like of being sad or feeling angry or irritable, if they don't really go away and they start becoming more and more intense, and if you start feeling overwhelmed by those feelings and you start feeling helpless and even hopeless, you might be suffering from depression. as I said, moodiness, not only typical for teenagers, for all of us. However, depression is much more than that. So depression goes way beyond moodiness. It's a serious health condition. It's a serious debilitating mood disorder, and it can impact every aspect of your life. So it's a very important topic to talk about, important thing to be aware of, as it can impact you quite greatly. It can change the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way you function in your everyday life. So depression can cause problems at home, in dealing with your family. It can cause you problems in school, also in your social life with your friends. So it spreads a little, you know, it starts by maybe just not feeling so great, but if we don't do anything about it, it starts spreading to different areas of our life, and it can become a really big problem. We usually think that mental health issues are something that adults deal with, so that it's an adult problem. However, that's not true. Research shows that depression affects teenagers far more than any of us really think. It's estimated that 1 in 5 adolescents will suffer from depression at some point during their teenage years. So it's actually quite common. In a classroom of 25 people, that would mean that 5 will be depressed at some point during their teenage years. That's quite a lot, and a big issue if you think in terms of schools. Like it's a big number of young people suffering and dealing with problems. So definitely important to deal with that. Fortunately, even though it is hard and it affects a big number of young people, it is treatable. It's one of the easier to treat disorders. There are many things that can be done. You can get help, and there is also a lot that you can do on your own. We'll talk about all these things together today. The problem is, however, that even though it is highly treatable, many depressed teenagers, most of them will never receive help. Why is that so? Well, unfortunately, as Nikita mentioned, in some cultures, it's just a taboo. We don't like to talk about it. We see, in most cultures, we see our emotions as something very private, something not to be discussed. Just the idea of being depressed sounds like you failed at something. You should be able to cope with things. So that's why so many people won't admit that there is something wrong, because they feel like they should be able to do this. They should be able to cope. However, that's not the way life goes. As we said, 1 in 5 young people will be dealing with depression. So it's not just something that only very weak person and who doesn't know how to cope will deal with. It's quite a common problem, and definitely something that all of us should be talking about. So to begin with, I know that sometimes, you know, we talk about depression. It's a word that we use a lot in everyday life, sometimes in its true meaning, sometimes not so much. We sometimes use it just, you know, when we're feeling a bit sad, we will say, oh, I'm so depressed today. So I think it's important that we talk about what depression is and what are the symptoms of depression. It can be really hard to put into words how exactly depression feels. No matter how many people you will talk to, we don't all experience it in the same way. So even if there was a way, you know, that we can really put it nicely into words, if you take 10 different people, they will have 10 different explanations, because, you know, we all experience things in our own personal way. But however depression affects you personally, there are some common symptoms that you might experience, and there are some symptoms that are important to look out for. So as I said, it's not just your typical moodiness. It's not just feeling sad for a day, or being really upset because something bad happened in school, and then the next day you're completely fine. That's not depression. However, if you have this constant feeling of sadness that somehow won't go away, if it feels like unusual sadness, if you feel also not only sad, because that's the feeling we associate with depression the most, being sad or crying, but that's not all. So if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling very irritable, that might be a sign of depression as well. If you notice that most things or all of the things that you used to enjoy stopped being fun, so nothing really seems fun anymore, the activities that you used to like, places you like to go to, you just don't like them anymore. You don't see the point in going there, doing those things, or forcing yourself to do something. That might also be a sign of depression. If you start feeling bad about yourself, that's something to be concerned about. Of course, we all sometimes feel bad about ourselves. We all have a part of our body that we really dislike and want to change. We feel bad when, you know, something bad happens. For example, in school, we get a bad grade and we expected a good one, or we hear that our best friend said something not very nice about us to someone else. Of course, we will feel bad about ourselves. But, you know, if these feelings, again, they start being more pervasive, they start being the only thing that you think of, then you can suspect that that could be depression as well. So feeling worthless, like you're not worth anything, or feeling guilty all the time and not being sure why, or just feeling that there is something wrong with you, those could be the signs of depression. Also, there are some other things that you don't necessarily connect to depression right away. If all of a sudden you start sleeping too much, or you cannot sleep enough, you start waking up a lot, sleep patterns are related to depression quite a lot, quite strongly. So this might be a sign as well. Yes, you do change in the teenage years, you change your sleeping patterns. I'm not talking about you liking to sleep until noon. That's I think something that we all went through as teenagers. However, if you notice big changes in your sleeping patterns, like you're always tired or you never feel like going to bed, then that's something to be worried about. Same thing with food, big changes in your appetite. So you never feel like eating all of a sudden, or you feel like eating all the time and you feel like that's the only time when you feel a little bit better or a little bit happy if you eat something. That's also a sign that there is something wrong. Connected to your weight as well. If you suddenly started losing or gaining weight without really trying to do so, this could also be connected with your well-being. If you feel that, you know, when you feel down, when you're unhappy, you start turning to alcohol or drugs because you think they will change the way that you feel. And if this starts happening more and more often, also one reason to be concerned. The problem with alcohol and drugs is that in the short term, they do help. They help you feel a little bit better at that very moment. In the long run, they actually make depression much worse, both alcohol and drugs, because their effect doesn't last long, and it actually influences your mental health and your well-being over the long run much more than it actually helps you in the short term. Also, another symptom of depression can be unexplained pain, that all of a sudden you started having these recurring headaches or other type of physical pain. You started to cry a lot, just everything and anything can make you cry. We are all sensitive to criticism, don't get me wrong. Nobody likes to hear something bad, but if you start being really extremely sensitive to any type of criticism, something to look into as well. And then one of the things I think is extremely important to talk about, not only to you young people, but also to the parents, your grades and your performance in school, that can be greatly connected to depression. So if all of a sudden you have a feeling like it's really hard to focus, like you have trouble concentrating, remembering things that you're supposed to do, that's one of the first signs of depression. And that's something that most of us do not connect to depression. So if we're not feeling particularly sad, but we have problems focusing and thinking, we don't think about depression, but that's actually one of the first signs of depression. So big changes in the way that you think, the way that you study, the way that you focus when you do something for school, all those things are important if we're talking about depression. And then all these things can lead to worse and worse feelings, and they can become too overwhelming. So if you start feeling like all of this, the school, your life, your family, all your feelings and thoughts, they're becoming too hard to handle. If you start feeling like it would be better if you're not here, the world would not change, or it would even be a better place, or if in any way you're thinking about suicide, that's definitely a sign of depression. And if that is the case, you should talk to someone right away. So if any of these feelings you have, like it's too much for you, like you don't want to be around, if you're contemplating suicide in any way, then just following some powerful tools to fight depression is not enough. Then it's definitely extremely important that you seek some help as soon as possible. But let's see if that is not the case, if you are feeling depressed more or less, is there anything that you can do, or is that's it and you're doomed to be depressed for the rest of your life? I said in the beginning, no, depression is treatable. There are things that you can do. There are ways to help you, but there are also ways that you can help yourself. So let's talk a bit about what can you do. So what are the things that you can do to help yourself if you're feeling depressed? First of all, extremely important thing to know, depression is not your fault. So you didn't do anything to cause it. It's not something that, it's a reaction to something that you did. It's not your fault. You couldn't have prevented it. It depends on some medical reasons, maybe even you have someone in the family, so it can be genetic. Not that it means that if you have someone depressed in the family that you will be depressed as well. It doesn't have to mean that, but it could contribute to the development of depression. Things that happen in your life, people around you, bullying in school, high expectations before university, all these things can add up. Also, your physical health can influence it. So there are many factors that contribute to depression. And even though you might not have the control over those factors, you do have some control over how you can feel better. So let's see what that might be. One of the first things that most people who start feeling depressed will do is they will isolate. They will start staying at home more. They will stop socializing, stop hanging out with their friends, because they just don't feel like being around other people, or they feel that nobody really understands them. However, even though we feel like being alone when we don't feel well, that's the wrong way to go. We actually know from research that being alone makes depression worse. And the longer you're alone, the worse it gets. So if you're aware that you're slipping, that your mood is really going down, it's important that you do really try your best not to isolate yourself. So make sure you make some time for your family and friends. And when I say that, I mean, like, really make sure you can schedule it. You can say every week on Fridays from 6 to 8, I will call a friend or go out for chai or for coffee or whatever, go to the movies. Make time in your schedule for spending time with friends and with family. It's extremely important. Just being, we are social beings. Human beings are social beings. It's in our genes. All throughout our evolution, we spend time around other people. It's extremely important for us. So even when we feel down, it's important that we surround ourselves with other people. If you have one friend that makes you feel a little bit better, that brings some positivity to your life, spend some time with that. I know that now at this time with this weird situation in the world is becoming harder, and we are even forced to isolate and stay more at home. use the media that you have. So use Zoom, use Skype, use WhatsApp, whatever you have. Schedule the meetings on Zoom with your friends, or just organize something to spend some time. If it cannot be face to face, even on Zoom, it's better than being completely alone. Also, if you can find any type of volunteer work, that's amazing. First of all, you will spend time with other people, whether it's helping other people or it's helping with others. You can be helping animals or collecting the trash or whatever. Any type of volunteer work is really good for our well-being. It increases the good feeling in us. It makes us more positive. It makes us more positive about ourselves when we feel that we contributed in a way to society, to others, whatever. So volunteering, very good thing. If you can do it, very nice way, to also keep yourself active, to keep yourself around other people, and to give yourself a boost in the sense that you really start feeling better about yourself. Another thing, if you are feeling down, I'm not saying in general in everyday life, I know most of young people do depend on social media a lot and you use it a lot. I'm not saying it's all bad and you shouldn't be using it at all, because I know that's not realistic and I know you use it for many fun things as well. But if you're feeling down, if you feel depressed, cut down on the social media use as much as you can, because the problem with depression is that it puts like a black cloud in front of our eyes, and whatever we are looking at, we see it through the black cloud, through the black sunglasses. It gives us like a negative overview of things around us. So when we are depressed and we use social media, we only see other people having great lives, and our life, because of that, feels even worse and worse and worse. So as much as you can avoid that, avoid it. Don't use it to remind yourself, how it's great for everyone else, but not for me, because first of all, you are looking through the dark sunglasses in depression. That's number one. Number two, social media does not represent real life, as you all know. So what you show on Instagram, it's not how your everyday life really looks. So it's especially bad for people who are dealing with some sort of mental health issues. If you do use media, as I said, use it to stay in touch with people. Create some new habits, like a game night, play, I don't know, play Fortnite with friends, or cook dinner together over Zoom, or exercise online together. Just create this habit that it's something, if you cannot do it face to face, do it online, but with other people. Next advice, extremely important for people who are suffering from depression, is be active, stay active, do as much as you can to keep yourself going. By this, I mostly mean exercise. Exercise can pump up our well-being in the ways we don't even expect. All the research that's been done shows that exercise, while it might be good for our physical health, it's 10 times better for our mental health as well. So extremely important. Keep yourself active. You release the endorphins, you feel better during exercise, you give yourself the reason to get up, to do something. It gives you the structure in life. You feel better about yourself because you did something for you. In any way that you look at it, exercise is extremely important. I know that people that are depressed, the main problem that they have is that they don't have the motivation. They don't feel like even starting. They don't want to get out of bed. So as in everyday life, so even if you're not depressed, the biggest mistake we all make is we wait for motivation to start working out. That's not how it works. If you haven't been motivated for the last 5 years, you won't wake up tomorrow motivated to work out. Start working out. When you make it a habit, the motivation will develop. So first you need to make this a habit. Make it a habit. Make it just a part of your day. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 15. It doesn't have to be working out for 2 hours in the gym with the trainer all of a sudden after you haven't done anything for the past, I don't know how many years. Just start with something, make it part of your day, and the motivation will develop because you will start feeling better and better about yourself, and it will start being an important part of your day, and you will start wanting to do it more. Any kind of exercise is good, whatever you enjoy, it doesn't matter. There is no research that shows this type of exercise is good, but this one is not. No, any type, as long as it's something that you like, that you enjoy doing, that you will be more likely to actually go out and do, that's perfectly fine. Hiking, walking, dancing, boxing, yoga, Pilates, whatever, playing any type of the sport. It can just be going for a walk. It can be playing football with some friends, whatever it is, any kind of physical exercise, extremely important. Since I am a researcher and a psychologist, I always like to put some science into everything that I do. So I need to mention some studies once in a while. So in this case, I will just mention this one study that I found really interesting. It showed that 30 minutes of cardio exercise every morning in some cases was just as effective as Zoloft, which is one of the most popular antidepressant drugs. So for some people, whether they're exercising 30 minutes every morning or they're taking the antidepressant medicine, the effect is the same. So I think it's an extremely powerful piece of information to show you just how good and how beneficial exercise can be. To combine two things together, so don't isolate yourself and be active, exercise with someone, exercise with a friend, go for a walk with a friend, meet with friends to play football, or as I said, exercise online with someone. It will keep you going, it will motivate you to even start and show up, and you will be spending time with someone else as well. Another very important thing when we're feeling down, when we are feeling depressed, again, many research studies show this. It's not just something that I came up with, or it's not grandma's advice as it might sound. This is really from research. Many research studies show gratitude is an extremely important thing in fighting depression. So if we look at the differences between happy people and not so happy people, what we see is that happy people tend to spontaneously focus on good things in life. Now you might say, yes, because good things are happening to them, so that's why they're happy. And good things are not happening to me, so there is nothing good to focus on. But that's not true, and that's exactly what these studies were looking at. So it's not only focusing on the good things when only good things are happening, but finding the good thing in everything that's going on. Even in the day that was not so good, these are the qualities of a happy people. So, and the good news here is that you can train yourself to do it. You can actually train your brain to start focusing more on positive things. As I said, with exercise as well, as with making sure that you spend some time with your friends, you have to make it a habit. So it has to be something that's part of your day without thinking about it, without waiting for motivation for it to come. It just has to be there. It's part of your schedule. Don't think whether you feel like it or not. Just make it something that you do at the end of your day. Train your mind to focus on something positive that happened in your life. For one of the good ways of doing it, this is having a gratitude journal. So what we mean by this is just have an old notebook, whatever, it doesn't matter, where you will write down every day in the evening before you go to bed, write down 3 to 5 positive things in each day. It can be whatever. I don't mean a huge life-changing positive thing happened to me. That's not what you're supposed to wait for, because those things are rare. What you want to focus on and what you want to train your brain to look at is small things in life that do happen every day, like a really good cup of coffee you had, or a really nice meal, or the sunset today was just so beautiful, or I've seen this really good movie yesterday on Netflix. Small things, doesn't have to be something crucial. Studies have shown that doing this, so writing down 3 things every evening that were good in that day, can improve your well-being in as little as 2 weeks. So doing it for only 2 weeks can already improve your well-being, but don't stop doing it after 2 weeks. It's, as I said, something that should be a habit. There was, a few years ago, there was this challenge where you were supposed to post one photo on Instagram every day of something that you are grateful for. So in a year, you would have 365 photos of the things that you're grateful for. That's another nice way of doing the same thing. Then something similar to gratitude, savoring. Savoring just means choosing one activity every day, something that you like. It doesn't have to be something you love or immensely enjoy, something that you like that makes you feel good. And then take your time to really enjoy in this activity, to really stop and think about it. How does this actually make me feel? And what is it about this that I'm doing that's actually making me feel good? So for example, if you have a nice meal, stop and enjoy it and think, oh my God, this is really one of my favorite meals ever. Or if you go for a walk, think about it. How does it feel to be walking? What does the beach look like today if you're at the beach? Or, you know, just something, pay attention to what it is that you're living through in the moment. And that's something that's relatively positive. And of course, if you find an activity like that and you do it, keep a souvenir of it. Take a pebble from the beach or take a photo from whatever it is that you're doing. If you want, you can share it with someone, just to remind yourself, you know, that there are these things, that you do find something in every day that's actually good, not necessarily everything is bad and negative. Another extremely important thing, whether you are depressed or not, in general, for our mental health, sleep is crucial. So having good, healthy sleep habits is extremely, extremely important. That means in your age, sleeping somewhere between 8 and 10 hours per night. Going to sleep, again, as with many things that we mentioned today, it's all about the habit. So have good habits before going to bed. Have a habit of always doing the same things that kind of show you, now it's time to go to bed, now it's time to go to sleep. You are probably all too young to know this or to ever have discussed this with your friends, but as you get older, or maybe you heard it from your parents, this is important from day one. When you have the baby, from day one, when you bring the baby from the hospital, you want to make like this ritual before bed so that the baby knows that he or she is now going to sleep. You want to do that to make sure that your baby actually sleeps at night. The same for you. The same. You should have a ritual before bed, like take a shower, put on a nice cream that smells nice, or use a nice scented candle, or listen to some specific type of the music, or read a book for 15 minutes before turning off the light. So there should be this ritual that's kind of slowly introducing you to a good night's sleep. Another very important thing, I know it's hard, but get rid of technology before bed. Technology is really bad for you before bed. First of all, it does emit blue light. That's just one type of the wavelength in light that's sending the message to our brain that it's day and that we should be awake. That's how we work. That's how if you turned on all the artificial lights, that's how humans would know when to sleep and when to be awake. When there is daylight outside, our brains get the information that there is daylight, and the brain keeps us awake. When there is no daylight, no blue light coming to our brain, no information to stay awake, we become tired and we go to bed. Using technology before going to bed is actually sending your brain the signal, it's day and I'm supposed to be awake. So if you're looking at your phone until the last minute before you actually try to go to bed, you're telling to your brain until the last moment, it's day and I should be awake. And then you turn off your phone and you expect yourself to fall asleep right away. That doesn't really work unless you're really, really tired. So try and get rid of technology for at least 45 minutes before bed. Do something else, listen to music, read the book, do whatever, just don't use your phone. If you're having problems, as many people who are suffering from depression do have, with sleeping patterns, sleeping either too much or too little, set a time for yourself. And in general in life, this is really good. Set a time for yourself when you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning, even if it's the weekend. And by this, I don't mean wake up at 7 a.m. You can set up the timer during the weekend at 11, at noon. It doesn't matter, whenever it suits you, but it's important that you have a time in the day when you get out of bed. That's extremely important if you're suffering from depression, even more than in general in life, because otherwise your day drags on, you stay in bed, you keep feeling lower and lower, and your energy levels just go down because you didn't start your day at the moment, you know, when you woke up, or when it was the time to start the day. So do make sure that you get up in the morning at whatever time it is that suits you, but get out of bed and start your day with something, anything, just not lying in the bed. Another thing, similar to what we've mentioned before with volunteering, you can do some random acts of kindness. Yes, it does sound like it's making someone else happy. It is. But again, research shows that it's actually making us much more happy than when someone else does something for us. So if there was one study where people were given $10 and they could spend it either on themselves or on someone else. In the group of the people that spent the money on themselves, they were after half an hour just as happy as they were before. However, the group of people who actually got that money to spend it on someone else, they were much happier half an hour later than they were before. Doing things for others makes us feel good, makes us feel connected, makes us feel important and needed in life, and that's something that we all need, and we all like to feel that way. It can be small things. By doing random acts of kindness, I don't mean, you know, donating $10,000 to someone. What I mean is just, let's say, leave a message on someone's car on the windshield, or leave the message in a public restroom, just have a nice day or whatever. Help someone carry their groceries. If you see someone struggling, just help them to their car or to their apartment. Call someone you haven't heard in a long time, like an elderly relative, member of your family that you know will appreciate the call, or just think of a friend or someone who was important in your life and just send them a short message saying how much you appreciate them and how much they mean to you. It's a small gesture, but it makes the other person very happy, and it will make you feel good about yourself and about them as well. One of the big problems when someone is fighting with depression is that most of their thoughts will be negative. As I said, depression is a bit like a black cloud all around us. It's like putting on dark sunglasses. So everything seems negative, and we seem to think about things in this negative way. We see everything as either things that happen in our life can be either super positive, which most things never are, or if they're not super positive, then it's all bad, it's all negative, and it's all horrible, and my life that is not worth anything. So we get these negative thoughts, very extreme, or we just suppose when we are thinking about something, we just suppose that the bad thing will happen. That's what depression does to us. That's the type, that's why it's called a mood disorder. It changes our brain in the way that it turns down our mood, and it makes everything seems more negative than usual. There is this technique that's used in counseling, specifically in cognitive behavioral therapy for depression, that's called challenging the negative thoughts. So basically what it means, it's like having a discussion with yourself. When you notice that you think something negative, stop yourself and try and reflect. So if you think, I would really like to go out, I would like to go out for coffee, I would like to go with my friend Mary, but if I call her, she'll definitely say no, and then I'll feel even worse. So you don't even call her, and you stay at home and you keep thinking how sad and miserable you are, and you don't have anyone to go out with. That's an example of, let's say, negative thoughts. So you have to stop yourself and say, how much do I believe it? How much do I believe that she won't want to go out with me? From 1 to 10. Probably it will be somewhere around 9 or 10, otherwise you wouldn't give up. And then try and think about it. Is it really true? Do I know it's true? Do I know she will really say no? Maybe she said no last time. Could there be another explanation? Maybe she was busy. Maybe she just had a fight with her boyfriend or her family. Maybe she was in a specifically bad mood. Maybe it wasn't about me. What would you say? Think always when you encounter something like this, think about if your friend told you the same thing. If your friend told you, oh, I want to go out, but I don't want to call that person because they'll say no. What would you say to them? Would you tell them, yeah, they will definitely say no, don't even try? You probably wouldn't. That's not the advice you would give someone else. You would probably say, well, maybe you should try and give her a call. So try and think, what would you tell your best friend in the same situation? And in the end, try and do the thing that you're thinking about and see what happens. You know, life will, in many instances, surprise you and show you that, you know, it's not necessarily as negative as you think. And then after you did these things, like try and think of another explanation, or what would you tell your friend? Try and think, how much do you believe that negative thought now? How much do you really believe after going through this, after challenging these thoughts? Do you still believe that it's 9 or 10 true out of 1 to 10? You will notice that in many cases, this will change and you'll stop believing it so strongly. And then one of the last things that I want to tell you is, when we feel negative, when we feel sad, when depression comes over us, our usual reaction to any kind of negative emotions is to try and avoid them. That's a normal reaction for all of us. We try and avoid thinking about how we feel or even feeling those things. We try to kind of remove it and pretend it's not there. However, unfortunately, that's not how emotions work, and we cannot do that, because the more we ignore or suppress our emotions, the more they will come back to haunt us, and they will try, you know, the stronger they will come back. So sometimes we just need to focus on them. There is this meditation technique called RAIN that tells you, like, first try and recognize like in RAIN, recognize what you're feeling. So you're feeling sad, your chest feels tight, or your heart, or whatever it might be. Then accept, okay, yes, this and this happened, and it's no wonder that I feel sad or whatever about this. Then investigate. So how, you know, what is really going on? Can I change this? And just sometimes nurture, in the sense, just say, it's okay. It's okay to sometimes feel sad, especially if you have the reason. But sometimes we just need to sit with our emotions and admit that it's okay to sometimes be sad, and we don't necessarily always have to try and just run out of it. And finally, the last one, but the most important one, if you feel like your depression is becoming a bit too much for you to handle, or if you cannot do the things that you might do on your own, ask for help. That's the most important thing. If you're dealing with depression, if you're dealing with anxiety, or any kind of, you know, mental health issues, you have to ask for help. Yes, I know in some societies it's not really accepted to talk about it, but I think it's more of a taboo just because we feel it's a taboo. If we really turn to someone that we are close to, they are usually willing to help. Especially young people are reluctant to talk to their parents, especially if their parents are always nagging about something and complaining about how do you behave. But trust me, most parents just want to see their kids feel okay. And if you do come to them honestly and say, look, I'm really not feeling well lately, and this has been bothering me, in most cases, parents will want to help you. They do want your benefit first. If, of course, there are cases when it's not like that, if your parents are abusive in any way, or they have problems of their own, you think it's difficult for them to take care of you or to pay attention to you, then you have to find another person that you can trust. My first suggestion would always be talk to a counselor. Counselors are there for that. We are trained to do that. Talking to us is completely confidential. I never ever share anything I hear in my office with anyone else, even if the students talk about other lecturers, if they talk about each other. it's a big, big, big no to talk about any of those things for me outside my office. So it's a perfectly safe place to open up, and we are trained to actually help you in those situations. And if it's something that we cannot deal with or don't want to make things maybe worse, we can always refer you to someone that we know is really good in this. So definitely counselors are there for any similar problem, definitely for depression. Just talk to your family, talk to your parents if you can, if not to the counselors, if not then to your friends at least. Even though if it may feel like you don't have anyone at this moment, there are always people who care about you, and you know it's extremely helpful, extremely important to say the things out loud and share how you feel. So that's all the advice from me about what you can do when you're feeling down. I will just finish with another suggestion, because I do know that how most of you spend your days, and I know most of you do use your devices quite a lot. There are many amazing apps for mental health as well, and there are many amazing apps that can help you if you're feeling depressed. I will just go quickly through them just to show you. You can write down their names if you see something that you like and search them up later. So there is an app called Free Good Things. It's a happiness journal. It can help you practice gratitude that we talked about. So Free Good Things. Then there is the app called Smiling Mind. It's an app about mindfulness meditations. It has different programs for different age, really, really well done, very easy to follow, doesn't require any specific skills, very simple for different ages, as I said, really good application just to increase your well-being in your everyday life. Then there is Happy Me for kids and Happy Me for young people, for teenagers. It helps you actually imagine your feelings as if you're separate from them. So you imagine your feelings like an avatar, and that's actually a good psychological method that helps you deal with negative feelings from a distance. So this is an app that can help you with this Happy Me for young people. Then there is something called Virtual Hope Box. This can help you during the stressful times. You can do many things in there, like use some games to distract yourself, remind yourself of the good things or the good things that happened previously in your life. You can store your images, your photos, your activities, songs, games that you can use when you need them when you're feeling down. An amazing app for people who have recently lost someone. They had a family member die, or a friend or anyone close to them, and they're dealing with grief. Amazing app called A Part of Me that can really help with dealing with grief. Then there is the app called Calm Harm for children and teenagers who are maybe struggling with self-harming and thinking to self-harm during the times of high stress. This is a really good app that's developed by professionals. It guides you through different steps, how to react and what to do during the times when you feel the urge to harm yourself, and how to distract yourself and do something else instead. My free very important app for people who are struggling with thoughts about suicide. It's a very powerful tool. Again, it was created by psychologists and psychiatrists who deal on regular basis with suicidal patients. So it can help in the moments when you're feeling like there is really no way out. So these are just some of the apps that might help. The things before, something that you can do in your everyday life. I hope you found something there that you think might help you, or that you at least found interesting. And now if we have any questions that we can cover.
Thank you, Dr. Maja. That was really a very interesting talk and lots of advices there. I'm sure all of us have got some key learnings. Specifically, even I've learned a lot today. knowing more about how do you go through, understand yourself, introspect on matters when, you feel, hey, it's not my day, it's a low day for me. How do I deal with that? We have a few questions, Dr. Maya. We have someone who says, does intrusive thoughts count as depression?
No, intrusive thoughts can be, they're actually part of our psychological life in general. Everyone has them, and it's perfectly normal to have very negative intrusive thoughts. The problem arises if you don't really know how to cope with them. So if they become too overwhelming, and if you really get stuck on a certain intrusive thought and you cannot see it as just an intrusive thought, but you start believing it and thinking too much about it, then it can lead to further problems. But intrusive thoughts in themselves are just a part of actually our coping mechanism to try and avoid potential dangers in our life. So that's why we have these. They developed through evolution to try and keep us safe. So for us to try and predict the bad things that could happen and how we could protect ourselves from it. So it's evolutionary, actually an important process. The problem is that sometimes they become too much. So we start believing in them, and then it starts overtaking our thoughts, and we focus on that only, and then that can cause more problems than actually do us good.
Thank you, Dr. Maya. We have another individual who's asked two questions. One is about dealing with toxic people, and the other being with the fact that if you're tagged as being somebody who's always sad and generally considered as an outcast, how do you deal with that? And especially if it's dealing with their family members or with them per se. So how do we help them out in this case?
Those are two quite difficult topics, both of them. Dealing with toxic people is extremely hard, and it's actually one of the main reasons, why people develop mental health problems is when over long term, especially if we live in the household with someone who is, let's say, a toxic personality, it's something that's very hard to deal with. I would suggest mostly in that case, ask for help from outside, because I think in these situations, the biggest problem that you have is that toxic people manage to convince us that what they're saying is true. And even when it's completely illogical, and we know it is, but it's very hard to resist it on our own. So having help from a counselor or someone that you can talk to on a regular basis can help you keep your focus, and also learn, how to deal with the things that they say, how to not accept them as true, how to respond to them. So my main suggestion for anyone in this situation would be definitely find someone to guide you. A counselor in this case can do a lot. They can actually help you deal with the situation on the everyday basis. If you're seen, the other question, if you're seen as someone who is always sad or down and people just treat you that way, well, you can only show them that you're not, it's in the end, it's our behavior and the things that we do on the outside that people see. They cannot read our minds, and that they don't know what's going on inside us. We all make assumptions about others, let's be honest. So from other people's behaviors, we all make certain assumptions about what this person is like. However, we can base that only on their behavior. We cannot read other people's minds. So it's the same when it's about you. Other people cannot know any different about you than what you're showing on the outside. Sometimes you just have to, bite your tongue and kind of go through it, and maybe just try and say it out loud, or change your behavior a little bit in little steps, and see, if people change their approach to you as well. Because remember, people always respond to what we show on the outside. That's the only thing that they see. You can be the nicest person in the world in your head, but if you're not showing it to other people, nobody will know, and then they won't treat you the same way back. So
That's a lovely positive advice, Dr. Maya. I'm sure the attendees got their answers and, help themselves to find out a solution for their question. We have a last one here, which says, when we are depressed, do we go on to the first stage of so-called the depression cycle?
Well, depression is a complex disorder, doesn't necessarily have steps. And as I said, it's quite different for different people. We do feel, we go through it in different ways. There is no right or wrong way to go through this. The thing is that the longer we leave it untreated, the longer we don't do anything about it, the worse it gets, because the negative thinking that we mentioned, the black cloud in front of us, the more negative thoughts we have, the more we convince ourselves that they are true. And the more we believe they're true, the less we will have positive thoughts in our head. And little by little, the negative ones will become completely pervasive, and then it will be harder to break out. So there is no, I wouldn't say, there are steps in developing depression, but there is definitely, depression won't be full blown from day one. You will start feeling some symptoms first. If you don't do anything about them, then they might get worse. They probably will over a long period of time. Sometimes you will feel some symptoms of depression, nothing will develop from them. You might recover spontaneously. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will sink into deep depression, but not doing anything about the symptoms usually will lead to worse symptoms. So if you feel anything that kind of gives you the clue that you might be depressed, even mildly, I think it's very important to seek help.
Thank you for your valuable advice, Dr. Maya. I'm sure there's so many key takeaways that people have taken across today. I hope they've got some learnings and from your tips and tricks. I love the fact that there are apps today that could help us as well to reach out. And all of those practical suggestions that you've suggested, they're all learning, guidance for everybody here today. And definitely,
of course, it's not only for depression, it's for everyone. These are just some positive ways of functioning that can definitely help us all, even for people who feel really good, to maintain this good mood and positive outlook on the world, and definitely help if someone is not in this position.
Absolutely. A lot of our attendees were also counselors, so I thank everybody today, all school counselors as well, students, and everybody who's joined us from all across the globe. Thank you again for taking time out, Dr. Maya, for sharing your...
You're more than welcome.
Everybody who joined us. Definitely we have more power over our depression than we think we do. And, these are the baby steps that could definitely take up in helping us to find solutions, and stepping up by just participating and just looking at, introspection and taking those small steps will definitely help us go a long way. And, your advice, Dr. Maya, in terms of all those practical guidance, the simple, steps that we could implement in our lives, definitely switching off from the technology and those applications, even including adopting a dog or an animal per se. It could go along. So thank you, Dr. Maya, for today's session. And for all of those who's joined us today, you can definitely see the recording from the YouTube session of Murdoch University. Go log on to our YouTube page, and you'll definitely receive all of the recordings, what we've done today, and also from all of our past Mondays at Murdoch sessions. Stay tuned for more sessions coming up. We'll have many more interesting topics like today. Thank you again, Dr. Maya, for your time. I really appreciate the fact that you spared, from your long, hours of work. Thank you so much for coming in today, for chipping in and sharing your advice.
Thanks for having me.
My side would be, there were some trickling questions which said, whom do we reach out to? I mean, if parents do not, we feel that we are being tracked by parents on phones, how do we reach out to, people, in terms of looking out for depression? What would your last, word of advice be for those cases who feel we want to reach out, but we don't know what to do?
Look, I know that, especially here in Dubai, the problem is that even if you want to talk to a counselor, they're quite expensive in many cases, which is why if your school has a counselor, I would definitely recommend that to be the first place. As I said, that's completely confidential. The fact that the person works in your school doesn't mean anything. They will not discuss whatever you tell them with anyone else unless you allow them to do so. I think that's the most practical solution, and it's out there. So you're all students in schools. That's the easiest answer. Or someone that you really feel good connection with, like a teacher that you trust, or if you're training a sport, like your coach that you have good relationship with, or someone else from you. It doesn't have to be your parents. Maybe you have an aunt or an uncle, a grandparent that you feel might be more understanding and more there for you. I think, you know, like if you think about it, I think all of us will find at least one person in our lives where we can turn to. But definitely, if you feel like it cannot be your family, try in school, try with a teacher or with a school counselor. As I said, that's our job. That's what we are here for.
Definitely, Dr. Maja, that's a key takeaway. Thank you so much again. It was lovely to actually have you today. Any general closing thoughts from your end, Dr. Maja, generally for everybody?
There is always a way for everything. You just have to be, we all have to be persistent and, you know, just help ourselves, and we'll find it. So don't give up.
Thank you, Dr. Maja. Have a good day ahead. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.